Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of August 29th, 2025 to September 5th, 2025. As always, we're going to recap the flow that was called out. We're going to touch on last Friday's flow as well. For those that are new to joining, I'm now recapping Friday's flow because most of the time when it comes in on a Friday, you don't always see that move until that next week. So we're going to recap some of that flow from last week. Not dive super deep into it. Obviously, dove into it in the previous video, but we're going to kind of just recap that. And then we're going to look at the flow that came in this week. And I'm looking at the full range of the contracts. So from the entry to the max return. So keep that in mind here as well. And if you're, again, new to joining the video or anything, everything I'm recapping is posted in here. I post everything in real time. I don't edit my posts, and yeah, everything's just recapable. I hold myself accountable, so let's get started here. So last Friday here we had the XPEV puts, and we're going to pop these out. And this one I'm not going to kind of dive super deep into the flow again. I'm just going to kind of recap and tell everybody what it ended at and all that fun stuff. So here's our flow. Obviously, that was the opener there at 98. These actually hit a high of 154 here yesterday on the 4th. So that was a 57.14% max return. Looks like our whale's still in. These are now 1% in the money. The QQQ puts from last Friday. These coming in right here, 248. Actually, 285 I have marked as our entry. But obviously the market opening down on Tuesday here. So looks like our whale kind of took out some profits here as well. Probably passed contracts off to a couple other people. Seen a lot of volume, but not open interest changes. Again, your flow coming in there, 248. We're going to go with that higher. 285 that I have marked down. Hitting a high of 930 here on the 2nd. That is a 226.32% return over the weekend on those. AFRM the 919.87.5 puts. Again, another one here coming in 375. Actually, I have 380 marked here on my spreadsheet. And hitting a high here of 675. Actually, 690 here on the 2nd. Giving us a 77.63 return. My math is wrong there. Check that math there. So that would actually be from 380 to 690. That's 81.58%. Obviously, that contract kind of chopped up here a little bit for a couple days near that high. Looks like our whale's still in with a little time on those. Our next one to recap from last week, GLD. Massive one here. Entry coming in here, 29 million. Whale taking them off at 1088 here. These did hit a high of 1269 here today, actually. That's 252.50% for a max return. But our whale did take off contracts here on the 3rd. You can see a big chunk of that open interest dropping off there. And C, this was our loser from Friday. Flow coming in at 79. Looks like they probably cut them around here. Hard to tell. There's a lot of contracts changing hands in here. And we only had half of that volume carry over anyways into Tuesday. I almost said Monday. Market was closed on Monday, obviously. But these did kind of almost make a little comeback here today. Coming back up to 41. But I have that one being cut for a loss here. So on to this week now. So we have the 1128 IBIT 63 calls. We are going to start. We're going to see if I'm going to have to do 7 days here. Here's our whale entry. We had 967 contracts, 515K in total premium. Again, looking at that volume to open interest, something you got to always pay attention to. That we know this is an opening trade. We look at that flow here. And for those that are just joining, I look for certain rules when I'm reading the flow here. I'm looking for that IV to increase when that flow's coming in, and I like to see that flow come in at the ask. We'll look at some good examples of that as well. So first up, we have one right here. Obviously, your IV spikes. This is coming in as a repeated hit flow alert. Just kind of following all the way up here. So we did have a small drop in that IV, but what makes me keep this trade on is that spot price is now almost 25 cents higher a contract. So this is kind of when you can discount the IV a little bit, but typically I'd like to see that IV increase there as well, but the timing's off. I mean, you're about 8 minutes off there, 8-9 minutes before that big chunk came in there. And yeah, I mean, that's massive size there. And you can see, so we ran a little bit that same day, came up 575, and then we actually hit our high of 590 here on the 3rd. So that's just a small 11.32% gain. And what I always like to tell people too is you have to be smart when you're following these whales. They're humans just like everybody else. They can make mistakes. You have to go in with a trading plan and manage your trades smartly, manage your risk properly. What I tell people, what I look for if I'm just taking flow alerts that are coming in, I like to at least look for 10-15%. Anything below 10% I consider a loser on my end. But 10-15%, I at least have a stop set at break even. And as we go up, I like to adjust that stop up just to secure profits. I know there's some people out there that like to put like a limit sell if a contract gets to like 250. My best advice for that is that's a smart thing to do, but you put a cap on your profits. You want to maximize your profits. So that's why I like to adjust the stops up just in case that contract keeps going. And we had a member that was kind of talking about it. If they had a limit sell at 250 and the contract only hit 249 and you're up 40% on those contracts and it drops all the way down, you missed out on 40%. So that's why I like kind of adjusting the stops up, or a trailing stop if your broker allows it. But just kind of a little tip and trick there. I kind of try to throw them into each video, especially if there's new people joining. But those did chop. I mean, they hit that high there on the 3rd, and they were up a little bit, and even kind of coming up today, 580, getting close to that. So, I mean, you'd have a couple days there to get something off, and they are 1% in the money with a lot of time on them as well. But when we look at that here on the 4th, you can see a lot of that volume kind of coming off, or about half of it coming off there. So a lot of contracts changing hands. Probably wouldn't follow this one anymore. So that was a little winner for the week. And keep that in mind. Some of these contracts are a little longer term too. Like we'll touch on Dow here. So here's our entry, 8,700 contracts, 607,000 in premium. When you have these longer term contracts, you will typically be able to get a discounted entry. It's not always 100% that you're going to get a discounted entry, but the way I like to explain it to people is the longer the days to expiration, the longer the time frame for the potential move on the stock. So whales 42 days out, they're a month and a couple week or so out. They're not expecting that move probably that second or that day. They have a longer time frame on their idea, and you usually can find a discounted entry. We had some people take a discounted entry in the group here and got out here. I mean, these almost came back to break even today. They hit 66 for a high, closing at 55. So that whale's down 21% still, but still in with some time. And when we look at that flow again, and again, if you're just joining for the first time or whatever, you'll notice the flow is always kind of going to be repeating how it looks to me. We'll see. Okay, here's our flow. So you see it come in here. There's your IV spike. You're coming in at the ask. Just keep following this up. I'm looking at that IV. And this is where it gets very interesting. You see that spot price increase right there with your big size, your big premium. Your IV spikes there as well. Reads as a buy. And you can see that timing here. Always pay attention to the time. And I look at the flow around it as well, too, just because I like to see how that flow is interacting with the other flow. But good find there. So this does read as a buy. Obviously, there's some time on these still, but whales down 21% on those. So up next, we had the SPY 912-613 put. pop this 3 days. So this was our whale coming in here at 62 for an entry. These only ran up and kind of touched 65 there. So, I mean, not a massive return on those. And, I mean, you have good premium here. And obviously a little time on those. We got to see how much of that volume carries over. But even when you read that flow here, I mean, you get a repeated hits ascending fill. This is telling you that fill is ascending, that spot price is increasing. You can see that right here. And you see that IV spike again as well. It reads as a buy. And, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, we had another 17,000 contracts there and then 15,000 there. Have to see if anything carries over or what happens there. I mean, they're weekly, so Theta's going to kind of eat them. But my guess is that whale probably cut these at 27. So they would have cut them for a 56% loss there. And one thing I tell people is you don't have to follow these whales until they cut their trade. You should be limiting your risk yourself and managing your own trades smartly. I mean, a 56% loss is a very big loss. I would probably not be having that. I mean, even here on that same day, 62, you're coming up here 66. And I see SPY kind of driving at the end of the day. Probably a stop's going to probably hit in here for me if I'm managing risk properly. So loser there as well. So up next, we had the CVE 1017-16 puts. Great move on these. We got in here at 55 actually. When we look at that flow here, again, you can see I'm going to pop the results out. And this is why it's always important to read that actual flow feed. So that IV kind of drop, or it's up here and then we drop a little bit here. So what I see then here is obviously that IV comes back up. So it's telling me maybe that it's not a deal breaker here if I see that IV kind of come back up. And at the time as well, if you look at this 2 days ago, or 3 days, sorry, let's pop this out. You have that big spike in that net put premium as well. So I'm combining a couple multiple data points as well. But these moving here 55 kind of chopped that same day, kind of chopped that next day, and then we made our big move here hitting a high of 85. So 54.55% return on those. So like now if I'm in these still, even though I have 41 days, I'm going to secure some profits. I'm up over 50%. I can put a stop on. I can secure profits if it hits, and I can recycle those profits and re-enter the trade if I really want. So nice little tip and trick there as well. But good move on those 55 to 85. It's 80 or 54.55%. All right, up next, NVDA 912-172.5 call. This one kind of a little messy. 330 was the entry. They just kind of chopped here. I mean, only hit 338 and then just kind of slowly drove down. We didn't have, when we look at the third here, you see all that volume here, but not a lot of that carrying over. That can be an issue sometimes with a lot of names that get traded a lot. But at the time, I mean, it looks like an opener because you got your big spikes there. Hard to obviously know, but looks like I'm probably would say they're getting out here probably on your big spikes here to match those other big spikes. Won't know 100%, but I have these at a loss around that 273-ish, so about a 17% loss on those for that whale. We'll go with that. Starts to get a little volume, so it's hard to kind of track that then. Up next, we have the 10-3 HUM 320 calls. These made a good intraday move right after that flow came in. Take a peek at that flow. So when these come in with this, it comes in pretty much as a block trade. That's pretty much what I call them. So again, you see that spot increase. Here comes your big size and your big premium here. And these are floor trades. You see your IV increase. That's a good sign of a buy. And this is why I like to see that flow kind of around it too. Now, if this was just a singular trade and you didn't have these other two trades in there, I wouldn't touch that just because I can't really see how that flow reacts with other flow. Well, this flow we have that original one coming here. Then you have that big size coming in here, same timing and everything. IV spikes would read as a buy. And that move that same day, 9:49, just rocketed up here into close, 12:40 for a high on the day, actually 12:50 for a high. So that's a 31.58% gain. And don't have any data on the fourth here. Doesn't look like anybody made any trades on it, but we were obviously up here again on the yellow there, and we opened up higher again today as well too, but with a high of 11.95 today. So I mean, enough time to get a stop on, like, see this whale's still in, but that volume, I mean, falling, and it ended up red. You should be securing profits, and you can recycle those profits. So good move on that one. So up next, the 919 to 222.5 Goog puts. So these ones actually kind of made a move a little quicker. Look at that raw flow. Let's come in here. So keeping an eye on that IV here when that flow comes in. See that IV just increasing, 28.61 up here. You see where it increased. Then you see it kind of drop a little bit there, but not at the same time, so we don't know 100% for sure if it's the same whale, but can kind of make an educated guess. These actually moved kind of quick. So 221 here, within an hour they were up at the high of the day, 286. Actually, our high of the day was 3 on those, so a 32.74% move within an hour. That's a great move. And like here, I'm gonna have a stop on. I mean, this is a very gradual, slow one where you should be able to have a stop on and take some profits. But very good move there. I mean, 32% move. And that whale looks like they're still in, obviously. A little time on those. So NI, this was another good one here. Here's our whale. And obviously you see a lot of that volume. So here's another misconception too with the flow. People always think a bid side flow is a sell. That's not necessary, because look at how much of that volume carried over into today. And we made a good move on those. Here was our entry as well. And good example here of the block trade. You can see why you want to see flow around it, because if it comes in all at once, you can't read that flow around it. You see that IV spike, and you see that IV kind of stay the same around that. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. I like to see that flow before it, because this flow could be 30 for an IV, and then this could be a drop. So that flow in front of it's a little more important than the flow after it, but still always pay attention to the flow around it and all that, because I mean, you have 20 contracts come in here at 28.66. Don't know if it's part of the same trade, but I kind of like to look at that size and premium around it. But these making a good move, obviously, kind of chopped that same day, ran a little bit towards the end of the day, and then we hit our high today of 115. So that's a 76.92% gain on those. So up next, the McDonald's 919 322.5 call. Here's our flow. So again, reads as a buy. Here comes your flow, small little drop in the IV, and then you get the big spike in the IV on your size and premium. And this coming above the ask as well too, so pretty interesting there. But 198, I mean, just kind of chopped here into close, and then these are trading at 95 right now, or I've got a close of 95. So that whale's down 52%. Obviously, 2 weeks to go on those. A lot can happen in 2 weeks. There can be an announcement. You never know. But that one is still down. We have the CVS 1017 72.5 puts. We had some volume come in today. You want to see how much of that carries over into Monday, but these closing at 213. So that whale's up, I mean, just a 3% on those. Not a huge move or anything yet on those. And then we have C, not a lot of flow coming in today. Have to see what happens with these. Got in here 187. We're just kind of chopping here at 135, so that whale's down 28%. But again, some time on these as well. So keep that in mind. But a little shorter recap this week. just with it being a short week and all that. But that's all I got for this week. And just so everybody knows, Unusual Whales is running a Labor Day back to school sale. You can get your 10-15% off if you're just seeing this video after the sale ends here on the 9th. I also do have a 10% off discount code that you can use. Just click that referral link below in the description. And if you're interested in joining Stock Hub as well, that is also in the description below. All right, everybody, have a great weekend.